at the HTML5 Developers Conference with Michael Mullany from Sencha, one of the most knowledgeable people in the industry on HTML5 and the trends. And so it's a pleasure to have you.
It's great to be here.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Wanted to go through 3 points. One was your views in the future on browsers, the other was on mobile, and the last is your Fastbook talks have been very popular here, so I'd love to have you say a few sentences about Fastbook too.
Yeah, sure, great. So we've been really pleased with the progress of HTML5 over the last 3 years. If you look at the HTML5 test scores from HTML5test.com, you see really rapid progress in the Edge browsers from both mobile and desktop. And adding to that is the fact that older browsers are dropping off faster for desktop users as well. So essentially IE6 last year fell off the support list for almost everyone building applications. Thankfully, thanks for everyone. And thanks to Microsoft's shift to an automatic upgrade to the latest edition that your PC will handle, we're also seeing IE7 drop off really quickly too. So IE8 is unfortunately the small fly in the ointment. We're going to be supporting IE8 for a long time on desktop because that's the only browser that will run on XP. But we're really happy to look at IE9 on Windows 7 and possibly as well, IE10 on Windows 7 pretty rapidly happening as well.
And the rumors on IE11 sound really good.
And IE11 sounds fantastic. If we get WebGL on IE11,
we have it all, huh?
that's going to be great, yeah. We've been really happy with IE10. It's a fantastic browser.
Great. Now mobile is absolutely Sencha is front and center on mobile, so how are things going there?
Yeah, I mean, we were the first out with a framework to do mobile HTML5. We shipped it almost 3 years ago now, Sencha Touch. And we were first to take advantage of a lot of the great stuff that Apple had put into CSS3, like CSS3 animations and transitions that were all hardware accelerated, which was fantastic. And that's been going really well over the last 2 years. We're now in our 2nd edition. We've added support for all sorts of platforms, not just WebKit, but also Windows Phone and BlackBerry and others as well. And we've been really happy at the kind of results that you get from mobile. Now, the big challenge for the industry, for browser makers, for hardware makers, for OS software makers, is how do we make mobile performance with HTML5 as good as possible? And we really look at sort of 3 things. And a lot of it you actually see in the Fastbook application. The first is, how do you do things to intelligently cache assets and cache JavaScript in the mobile browser? That's something that we added to Sencha Touch 2. It's something called delta patching, so that you can, when you come on your 2nd page visit, you only get the new JavaScript that's changed. You don't get the old initial JavaScript load. And we use local storage to solve that. Now, ideally, that would be just a feature of the browser. We shouldn't have to build it into a framework, right? I think everyone agrees, and there's a new proposal out that the cache manifest in HTML5 was kind of a half implementation. It didn't give everything that application developers needed to really do effective caching. So there's a great new proposal from Mozilla from last week that I think addresses a lot of the shortcomings in the native caching in the browser. The second thing we look at is, for performance, is how to do image replacement. And we were very early users and very heavy users of CSS3 to replace things like images for rounded corners and for blurs and for other things like that. And we've been very advanced in sort of building our theming system all around CSS3 and with Sass as an overlay on top of CSS3. But image replacement can get even better. It's one of the largest asset classes that sort of clog up the wire.
Yeah.
So we're actually very excited about hardware accelerated SVG and hardware accelerated filters that will hopefully do things like replace noise textures and replace text effects, even to a degree that CSS has allowed us to do so far. And the third thing that we've looked at for sort of improving performance is sort of better control of hardware acceleration and better control of layout as well. So that's something that I think that the browser makers and hardware makers can do a much better job of. Some of the things that we did in Fastbook And for people who are not familiar with Fastbook, we had a project basically last fall to rebuild some of the key features of Facebook's mobile application in HTML5 to prove that the technology really wasn't a barrier to really fast HTML5 experiences. But in building that, we did learn an awful lot about what makes great performance on mobile. And the focus of web performance engineers to date has really been around how do we get the first page load to load absolutely as fast as we possibly can. But there's been a lot less work done on, okay, now that you have the page loaded, now that you have the application loaded, how do you make things really fast after that? So Fastbook, which was written by two of our engineers sort of as a side project, Jackie Wynn and Jamie Avens, basically took the challenge of like, how do we take the feed, how do we take some of the sliding panels, how do we take some of the chat panels and make that super, super, super fast? Now the challenge in a lot of browsers is that there's a single thread that does all the work of parsing data, doing network connections, responding to events, repainting the display, and essentially that's too much work, because if you were doing things like flicking an infinite scrolling list in your Facebook feed, that single thread has to stop the animation, stop the event handling while it does stuff behind the scenes. So we did a couple of things to make it really fast. The first was to actually separate out different parts of the application into independently painted and composited and rendered areas using iframes. The second thing we did was we separated out a lot of data parsing into a separate thread using web workers so that you could do a lot of the data parsing off the main thread. And the third major thing that we did was we actually built our own animation queuing system in JavaScript to prioritize the events that were going on in the browser and make sure that absolutely nothing interrupted the most important thing that happens in an infinitely scrollable list, which is when you hit the screen and flick, the content animates and the content moves. So a lot of people have been interested in how we did it. The good news is that they don't have to write it themselves. We're actually shipping a lot of those features in Touch version 2.2, which is coming out in the next couple of weeks. So they'll be able to create their very own Fastbook experiences. And some of the features will show up in the next major version of Sencha Touch as well. So yeah, Fastbook was, we think it was an industry-defining event for HTML5. It showed that the technology is very capable. You just need the right tools, you need the right development approach, and you need the right frameworks.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming to the HTML5 Developers Conference. And it was wonderful to see you again. Michael was at the very first one when this was just, exploding. And I appreciate the fact you are here when we are more polished.
It's a fantastic conference this year. I really enjoyed my time here, and thanks for putting it on. It was fantastic.
Thank you very much.